This is ChangeMakers with Katie Gore, finding the right solutions for the affordable housing community.
Thank you for joining me for the second part of my conversation with ChangeMaker Brad Hargreaves, the founder and CEO of Common. Brad, in part one, we talked about how you've built your company, and now I want to talk about the arm of Common that you launched during the height of the pandemic, and it revolved around workforce housing. How is that going?
Yeah, absolutely. So we launched a brand called NOAA. It's actually a backronym for naturally occurring affordable housing. And what we saw is about 60% of all apartment units in the United States kind of fit into this broad bucket, for lack of a better term, workforce housing, which tend to be somewhat older. They tend to be somewhat lower rent. They tend, in general, to be more poorly managed than your kind of higher end urban residential assets. But because of those reasons, there's a lot of opportunity to add value through quality operations, through technology, and our centralized approach. So we started managing our first workforce housing assets about 18 months ago. We started in Hampton Roads and in Winchester, Virginia. There's no co-living in workforce housing, to be clear. Usually the rents are too low to support it. But we are leveling up the quality of resident experience by bringing a more centralized model where people can get in touch more easily, and also increasing leasing velocity by providing that inside sales force, that centralized model. So we've seen a lot of success there. It's actually I would say probably the fastest growing part of Common today is our workforce housing management business.
Do you guys have a goal for growth, year over year, or, what's your growth strategy there?
Yeah, so we'll triple the business approximately this year, going from we began the year around 4,000 units under management. We'll end around 12,000 units under management. Today we're around 7,500. So it's really kind of on a rapid growth trajectory, both driven by the consumer need for attainable housing, as well as interest from owners and from people on the real estate side who are looking at ways new products can accelerate their lease up and can add value to their building.
So talk to us more about that technology piece. We've mentioned it, once or twice here. And what are your goals, with how you're going to improve the customer experience? I mean, what does that look like?
When a lot of people think about residential technology, they think about kind of whiz bang gadgets hooked to the wall. But for us, 98% of our focus is actually on the software side, and of that focus on software, I would say 80% is actually focused more on back office automation, quality, and efficiency, as opposed to tenant experience. Although obviously there's a tight relationship between those two. And understanding the technology and the role software plays for us, it's really important to understand the centralized operating model. I've referred to this a few times, but having a central office where people are handling issues that are happening at a property level, that are working with tenants, that are working with prospective tenants, once you have that, it's a lot easier to roll out technologies that are adding value at the property level. So better ways of routing leads to make sure that leads are paired with the best possible unit for them, that they're paired with the best potential tour time, that they can be set up on a virtual tour. So before they go to a site tour, they've actually already seen the unit. There's a lot of opportunities to handle maintenance tickets in a more automated way, add efficiency there, add efficiency on the leasing administration side, credit checks, background checks, qualification, and just dealing with all of the paperwork, payment, etc. There are a ton of opportunities to add efficiency, add value, and frankly make the resident experience better, because they can go from seeing a unit to having a signed lease and being ready to move in within a matter of hours, of minutes. That's really powerful, and that's where residential is headed. Understanding that our focus has really been on that back office function. From a tenant experience side, it's we've really taken an interest-driven approach. which is as a tenant, we want to be able to get away from, the wine and cheese night that every property manager throws on Thursday night for their tenants. And we want to be able to be more creative and really leverage our tenants' creativity in creating interest-driven events. So tenants can select areas of interest and matches them up with other tenants. They can co-create events and opportunities to meet, whether it's around, media, things like television shows, movies, around activities like a running club, whether it's specific events that are happening in the local area. So that's been really our focus. Is it's not enough for people to just share a building. That we really have to go to the interest layer as well, and that's particularly impactful for people who are new to the city, who are moving to a city for the first time, and are looking to meet new people.
What can you tell me about Common's recent acquisition of the majority of Star City's management agreements?
I would say that was, you're looking at a lot of consolidation in the co-living space right now, and partially because you have a lot of operators, and put Star City in this bucket. I mean, they did some really tremendous and creative things in the housing space. They were very thoughtful about how they approached it from a design and from a community standpoint, but they just weren't really able to get to scale. They had around 1,000 units under management when we acquired their management contracts, and that's just not enough to be profitable, to be effective as a property management firm. And that's fundamentally what you are as a co-living operator. I mean, obviously, you're approaching it in a very different way, but from an economic standpoint, you need scale, and they weren't able to get to that point of scale. And there are a number of other co-living operators that weren't able to get to that point of scale either. And so that really gave an opportunity for us to be that aggregator. And they had previously acquired Ollie, another co-living operator, and so we kind of were able to scoop up the assets of both Star City and Ollie.
It's fascinating to hear what your company is doing to be a part of the solution for the housing crisis. And I read that Common held a competition for the design and redevelopment of remote work hubs. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so that was kind of in the depths of the COVID pandemic. Everyone was working from home. We saw that more companies, more employers were going permanently remote. And the share of remote workers was likely going from 2% of the workforce maybe to 8 to 10% of the workforce, which seems conservative at this point. And that those workers would choose where they live, not based on the constraints of any employer, but on affordability, quality of local amenities, access to other places, and that there'd be an opportunity for cities that wanted to attract a very, I would say, mobile workforce, a very high income workforce, to do economic development not through your typical Amazon HQ2 recruitment process, but like a B2C company would, recruiting individual workers. So we came out with this remote work hub product, and we requested public-private proposals to work with us to build out these live work hubs in a way that would be really appealing, really exciting to remote workers who resonate with the Common brand, who follow what we do. And we could effectively be an economic development and recruitment channel for these cities. So we ran that last fall. We selected 5 winners, and we're really excited about moving forward with each of those 5 remote work hubs.
So, give us an example of one of the cities. What kind of project did they win with, and what city is it?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are 5 winners. They are Bentonville, Arkansas, Rocky Mount, North Carolina, Rochester, New York, New Orleans, Louisiana, and Ogden, Utah. And maybe I'll just start with that last one, Ogden. Really interesting city, very rich history, a lot of very cool old buildings, Victorian houses, dense urban core, but also very close to a number of ski resorts and destinations, providing that kind of outdoor amenity. It's very affordable. So we worked with a developer in partnership with the city of Ogden, who really came forth with a dual proposal of a remote work hub at a local ski resort paired with a hub in downtown Ogden. And we really got excited by, that opportunity for people to kind of have one membership but live in two areas at once, and be able to be up at the resort and and down in downtown Ogden, kind of even depending on the day of the week. So that vision really got us excited. And every one of the proposals, they're all different. We kind of chose them in somewhat separate lanes because we didn't want them to compete with each other, but they all bring something really special.
Is this a competition that you guys are going to have now annually? Because I don't envision remote work hubs declining in concept at all.
No, I don't think we will run it and we haven't totally decided, but I don't believe we'll run it as a competition annually. Given that, people come out of the woodwork, people see what we're doing, they see the projects under development. I mean, we'll open our first one next year. So they'll see these projects get live, and, we'll evaluate whether we want to add more hubs on a case-by-case basis.
Well, thank you so much for joining us and our brief conversation here. We've covered a lot. Remote work hubs usually aren't, one of the concepts we talked about in relation to affordable housing, but as the trend with labor and housing and rising rents, as this keeps happening, there are going to be concepts like this and co-living that has to be put into the discussion as possible solutions. So, what Common is doing is incredibly useful for the national affordable housing conversation.
Absolutely. It's not the solution, but it's a key part of the puzzle, and we're excited to keep pushing it forward.
Thanks for listening to Changemakers with Katie Gore. To find out more about Katie, go to quadel.com. That's QUADEL.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.